Welcome to Wealth Builders, episode 187. I'm Jake Reynolds.
And I'm Maya Daniels. Before we dive in, just a quick disclaimer that we're fictional podcast hosts created for your entertainment and education. But the wealth building principles we're about to share, those are very real.
Absolutely. And speaking of real, I just got back from speaking at the Financial Freedom Summit in Boston. And let me tell you, the energy in that room was electric. People are hungry for transformation in their financial lives.
I believe it. You know what's fascinating? A recent study showed that individuals with what researchers call a growth mindset about wealth accumulate an average of 32% more assets over a 10-year period compared to those with a fixed mindset. That's regardless of their starting income.
Now that's the kind of stat that gets me fired up. And it leads perfectly into today's topic, the psychology of wealth, why hard work isn't enough. Because let's face it, we all know plenty of people who work themselves to the bone but never seem to get ahead financially.
Exactly. And on the flip side, we've all heard stories of people who seem to attract wealth without killing themselves with 80-hour work weeks. So what's the difference? That's what we're exploring today.
Let's start by talking about what real motivation looks like. Because there's a world of difference between watching a motivational video that gets you pumped up for about 20 minutes and developing the kind of sustainable drive that builds wealth over decades.
This is such an important distinction, Jake. Research in behavioral economics shows that there are fundamentally different types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. And they affect our financial behaviors in dramatically different ways.
I learned this lesson the hard way in my 20s. I was hustling like crazy, working 3 side gigs on top of my day job, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night. I was motivated, sure, but it was all external. I wanted the fancy car, the impressive apartment. Basically, I wanted to look successful.
And how did that work out for you?
Crashed and burned after 18 months. I was exhausted, broke, and honestly, pretty bitter. Here's what I discovered. When your motivation is purely external, when it's just about the money or the status, you're building on sand. The first storm that comes along, and your foundation crumbles.
That's exactly what the research supports. When we're motivated primarily by external rewards like money itself, we tend to take shortcuts, make riskier decisions, and struggle with the delayed gratification that wealth building requires.
So is money itself a bad motivator? I know some of our listeners might be thinking, but I really do want to make more money.
It's not that money is a bad motivator, it's just an insufficient one. What's fascinating about this is that the most financially successful people we've interviewed don't focus primarily on the money. They focus on the value they're creating, the problems they're solving, and the growth they're experiencing.
Reminds me of our conversation with Dr. Wilson a few episodes back. She talked about purpose-driven wealth and how people who connect their financial goals to deeper values tend to persist through challenges that would stop others cold.
Absolutely. And that brings us to what we call our wealth mindset framework. 4 key components that separate those who successfully build wealth from those who struggle financially despite working hard.
I love this framework because it completely transformed my approach to building wealth. The first component is adopting a value creation perspective. Instead of asking, how can I make more money? You start asking, what problems can I solve that people would gladly pay for?
This shift is profound. When you focus on creating value, the money follows naturally. And what's particularly interesting from a psychological perspective is that this approach activates different neural pathways, ones associated with creativity and innovation, rather than stress and scarcity.
The second component is developing your delayed gratification capacity. And I'll be honest, this was my biggest challenge. I wanted everything now. But the game changer for me was learning to find satisfaction in the process of building wealth, not just in the end result.
The famous marshmallow experiment comes to mind here. Children who could resist eating one marshmallow now to get two later showed better financial outcomes decades later as adults. But what's encouraging is that delayed gratification isn't just an innate trait. It's a skill we can develop at any age.
Component number 3 is what I think of as the million-dollar mindset shift. Developing a growth-oriented relationship with failure. Do you run from failure or learn from it? Do you see setbacks as evidence that you're not cut out for success, or as valuable data that helps you refine your approach?
This is where we see such striking differences between those who ultimately build wealth and those who don't. Studies show that financially successful individuals experience just as many failures as others, sometimes more, but their response to those failures is fundamentally different.
I'll never forget interviewing Sarah Jensen for the podcast. She's now running a 9-figure business, but she failed spectacularly with her first 3 ventures. The difference was that she treated each failure like a high-priced education rather than a personal indictment.
And that brings us to the 4th component, strategic persistence versus blind hustle. This distinction is crucial.
Oh man, this one hits home. I was the king of blind hustle in my 20s. Working harder, pushing more, sleeping less, but with no strategic direction. It's like trying to chop down a forest with a dull axe and refusing to take time to sharpen the blade.
Such a vivid image. Strategic persistence means working smart, not just hard. It means regularly stepping back to evaluate if your efforts are moving you toward your financial goals, and having the courage to pivot when something's not working.
Before we continue exploring these fascinating psychological barriers to wealth, let me take a quick moment to tell you about today's sponsor, Builders. I'm genuinely excited about today's sponsor because I've been using their platform myself, and it's been a game changer. We're sponsored by Mind Studio, a platform with hundreds of free, ready-to-use, and easily customizable AI agents to help you get things done. I've been using their Chrome extension to help me research investment opportunities and draft business proposals in a fraction of the time it used to take me.
I've actually been using Mind Studio too, Jake. What I love is how it integrates right into my workflow. Instead of switching between different apps and tools, I have AI superpowers right inside my browser. It's helping me be more productive with my client work and content creation.
If you want to check it out for yourself, download the Mind Studio Chrome extension from mindstudio.ai. Now, back to our exploration of wealth psychology.
Let's talk about those psychological barriers that often prevent people from building wealth, even when they're putting in the work. One of the most pervasive is what behavioral economists call loss aversion. We feel the pain of losses much more intensely than the pleasure of equivalent gains.
And that explains why so many people stay stuck in their comfort zones. They're so afraid of losing what they have that they never take the calculated risks necessary to build real wealth.
Exactly. Another fascinating barrier is confirmation bias, our tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe. So if you believe that money is the root of all evil, or rich people are just lucky, you'll subconsciously find evidence to support those limiting beliefs.
I see this all the time with people who come to my workshops. They've got these deeply ingrained stories about money and success that are completely sabotaging their efforts. And the tricky part is, most of these beliefs operate below the surface of our awareness.
That's why conscious examination of our money beliefs is so powerful. When we bring these hidden assumptions into the light, we can evaluate whether they're serving us or limiting us.
Let's do a quick role play of what this internal dialogue often sounds like. I'll be the limiting belief voice. You be the wealth mindset voice. Ready? Here goes. I'm not the type of person who gets rich. That's for people who are either born into money or willing to step on others to get ahead.
Is that really true? Look at the evidence. Many wealthy individuals came from modest backgrounds and built their success through creating value for others. And what about the assumption that wealth requires harming others? The most sustainable wealth comes from solving problems and improving lives, not exploitation.
But I've tried to get ahead before, and it didn't work. I'm just not lucky enough or smart enough to build serious wealth.
That sounds like you're treating past results as fixed predictors of future outcomes. What if those past attempts weren't failures, but valuable learning experiences? And what if building wealth isn't primarily about luck or innate intelligence, but about mindset, strategy, and persistence?
That's exactly the kind of reframing that changes everything. And it leads us to our final segment, actionable takeaways that our listeners can implement starting today to develop a wealth-building psychology.
My first actionable strategy is to conduct a belief audit. Take 30 minutes this week to write down everything you believe about money, wealth, and financially successful people. Then, challenge each belief by asking, is this demonstrably true? Is this belief serving my financial goals? Where did I learn this belief?
Love that. My first strategy is to find your intrinsic motivators. Beyond the money itself, what does wealth represent to you? Is it freedom, security, the ability to make an impact? When you connect your wealth-building activities to these deeper values, your motivation becomes much more sustainable.
My second strategy is to practice incremental risk-taking. Our brains are wired to avoid risk, but wealth building requires calculated risk-taking. Start small. Take one financial risk this month that pushes you slightly outside your comfort zone. Then evaluate and learn from the results.
My second is to surround yourself with wealth-minded individuals. You've heard the saying that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's especially true when it comes to financial psychology. Find a mentor, join a mastermind group, or even just consume content from people who have the wealth mindset you want to develop.
And my final strategy is to implement a regular review practice. Set aside time each month to evaluate not just your financial progress, but your psychological relationship with wealth. Are you falling back into old patterns? Are you maintaining a growth mindset? This kind of self-awareness is invaluable.
And my third strategy is simple but powerful. Celebrate your financial wins, no matter how small. Did you negotiate a better rate? Save an extra $100? Make your first investment? Celebrating these victories reinforces the neural pathways associated with financial success and keeps you motivated for the long haul.
These are all excellent strategies, Jake. And to help our listeners implement them, we're launching our 21-day Mindset Reset Challenge starting next Monday. It's a series of daily prompts and exercises designed to transform your wealth psychology from the ground up.
I'm incredibly excited about this challenge. And here's what I know for sure. Changing your psychology around money is the highest leverage action you can take on your wealth-building journey. You can have all the tactics, tools, and techniques in the world, but if your mindset isn't aligned with wealth, you'll find a way to sabotage your success.
Absolutely. And speaking of success stories, our next episode features an interview with Damon Carter, who went from $100,000 in debt to building a 7-figure business in just 4 years. His insights on the psychological turning points in his journey are absolutely fascinating.
You won't want to miss that one, builders. In the meantime, we'd love to hear about your own mindset shifts. Share your experiences with us on social media. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links to all the resources we mentioned today.
That's all for today's episode of Wealth Builders. Remember, building wealth isn't just about working hard. It's about working smart with the right psychological foundation.
Until next time, keep building
and keep growing.